Hi friends, it's Terry Stewart, Independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, located in Central Maryland. Welcome to this edition of the Bundle Bonus. So it's April 2023 and we are saying goodbye to bundles. Some are retiring or the bundle price is retiring. So I'm here to share my project with one of my favorite bundles on the retirement list. So let's jump in. So the bundle I'm featuring this month is Nature's Prints with the So the bundle I'm featuring this month is Nature's Prints with the natural. I'm featuring the Nature's Prints stamp set with the natural prints dies. So this is one of the first bundles I bought out of the annual catalog. I just loved these floral images. You have some greenery images, you have a floral image, you have a splatter, and then of course you have these fabulous sentiments. Best wishes, hello there, thank you, and you're on my mind. So with the bundle bonus, I take a bundle and I make a card with it. So let me show you the card that I've made with this bundle. And I'm sharing a technique called the faux linen technique. So here I've taken some of those greenery elements and I've stamped them in Mossy Meadow. And then I took the splatter and I stamped that in Blackberry Bliss. I used the die cut, this label from the Natural Prints, to make this focal point. And then I punched out the small oval from the double oval punch. So let me show you this technique. Now I am going to be using a different color combination. You can see some of these splotches. That rich raspberry was so juicy that when I did the technique, some of the ink bled. So I'm going to try a lighter ink this time and see if that works. I'm going to try a lighter ink this time and see if that possibly helps with the splotching to eliminate it. So my ingredients for this card are a card base, and this is in Old Olive, and it measures 5.5 by 8.5 inches, or 10.5 by 14.9 centimeters. I have 2 scraps of Highland Heather scrap for my die cut, my Natural Prints die cut, and a scrap of Berry Vanilla for my double oval punch. I have another piece of Berry Vanilla, 3 3/4 by 5 inches, or that's 9.5 by 13.9 centimeters. A layer of Highland Heather, that's 3 7/8 by 5 1/8 inches, or 9.8 centimeters by 14.2 centimeters. A piece of Berry Vanilla, that's 4 by 5 1/4, or 10 by 14.4 centimeters, and this is the inside of my card. And then I have a piece of tissue paper, just regular old tissue paper. It's not even that smooth. You can see it's got some wrinkles, and it's 6 inches by 6 inches, or 16.6 centimeters. So let's start with this faux linen. I'm going to move all these other ingredients off to the side. I'm going to bring in a piece of scrap paper. So the colors I'm going to use for this one, and on my original, my sample, I used Mossy Meadow and Rich Blackberry Bliss. I'm going to go with an Old Olive and a Highland Heather. I'm going to start with my Old Olive, and I have my tissue paper laid out here, and I'm using the same stamp. So this is the, I guess, kind of a fern greenery image. I'm going to ink this up with my Old Olive, and I'm going to just stamp randomly. Now I do want to leave space for my Highland Heather, so I know I want to leave more space so it doesn't overlap as much. And I am stamping on this scrap paper just because I believe the ink may leak through this tissue paper. I do want the majority of my space to be taken up by this fern image. And then once I have all my fern images, then I'll start with my Highland Heather. And for this one, I'm going to use the splotch stamp. And I did leave more space. I feel like I was too crowded on my original. So I knew when I restamped this or remade it, my plan was to leave space for the splotch. And I think I've done well with that. Let's see if I can get this last image right there in the center. Okay. And that's all the ink I'm going to put on this tissue paper. Now to do this faux, so the faux linen requires that we take this tissue paper and we ball it up. And if you do this twice, you'll get even more wrinkles, which is really what you want. Now you carefully unscrunch it. I'm going to pull it out, and I'm going to scrunch it up again just to give it even more wrinkles. And I'm really pushing on it. So this is going to be our faux linen piece. And I'm going to bring back my Very Vanilla that's 3 3/4 by 5 inches. Now on this piece, so now I have my Very Vanilla piece. It's 3 3/4 by 5 inches, 9.5 centimeters by 13.9 centimeters, and I want to adhere my stamped tissue paper to it. And to do that, I have these adhesive sheets, multi-purpose adhesive sheets. Now this is old packaging, so I'm not sure that if you bought it from Stampin' Up now, what it would look like, but I'm going to pull a piece out, and I'm going to cut this to the size of my Very Vanilla, so I have something to adhere my tissue paper to. So with my paper trimmer, I'm going to cut this to 3 3/4, so it's the same size as my Very Vanilla. So 3 3/4 and by 5 inches. Now this does have an area where it says to peel here, so I'm going to make sure that that peel line that is a little bit longer because of that peel. So I'm going to cut this at actually 5 1/4 because the peel line's right here. So that gives me a little bit extra. And you might want to cut yours too. It's easier to peel with that peel line. So there is my adhesive sheet. And now I'm going to apply that to my Very Vanilla very carefully. So I'm going to peel up this cover, and the adhesive is on this side with no writing on it. And I can hold it over here on this little peel line because there's no adhesive right. I'm going to line this up very carefully and then lay it down. So now my adhesive is under this covering, and I can pull the covering back. I want to give this a little bit of a burnish to make sure that the adhesive stays on the cardstock. There we go. I'm just going to use my thumbnail to pull it away. There we go. So now the adhesive is facing up. I'm going to put this down, and I'm going to lay my tissue paper on top. Now this is going to be a portrait card, so I'm going to rotate this so I can see which way I might want my... I think this is going to be a good... And then lay it on top, and then push that tissue paper down. And you don't want all the wrinkles out, so I'm just going to be careful and push, not rub them out. Push the tissue paper down onto the cardstock, wrinkles and all, and then you can see the lovely texture. And I'm going to bring in my paper snips, and I'm going to trim that tissue paper away from the cardstock on the edges. There we go. This little edge needs to be cleaned up a little bit. And maybe over here too. Just clean those edges up. And there's our linen piece. And now we're ready to, there's our linen piece, and now we're ready for the rest of the stamping. So I'm going to stamp on my inside piece with the same stamps and same ink pads. So let me start with my Old Olive. Bring back my scrap paper, just so if I go off the edges, which I anticipate doing, that I don't mess up my workspace. I like to keep a pristine workspace. And then with my Highland Heather, I'll bring in the splotch. There we go. There is my inside, and now the last thing I need to stamp is so now I'm going to bring in my scrap of Berry Vanilla and my Hello There stamp with Memento ink. Now on my original I stamped with Blackberry Bliss because that was a darker color. My fear was that the Old Olive and the Highland Heather would not be dark enough. So I'm choosing to change that ink to Memento ink. I think I made the right choice there. Now bringing in my double oval punch, and I'll be punching the smaller oval right down here at the bottom. I'm going to line this up in there, center it. That looks great. And there is my sentiment. I took my Highland Heather and with my Natural Prints dies, I took this die, I went to my cut and emboss machine and die cut that from my Highland Heather scrap. And here is that piece. So now we are all ready to start assembling. So let me bring in my Highland Heather layer. My glue and my linen, my faux linen piece. And I'm going to adhere this directly to the Highland Heather piece layer. And it has a very narrow border because we cut it very close, so it's a very little shallow mat. And there we go. And this gets adhered to our card base of Mossy Meadow. This is actually Old Olive, and it's a half piece of cardstock scored in half. So I'm going to burnish on that score line just to crisp it up a bit. There we go. And then I'm going to put my linen, my matted linen, faux linen panel on. Again, using some liquid glue. And this fern is going up, and this one's coming up, so I'm going to go in that direction. Mat it with that frond going up. There we go. All right. So I've used two different ribbons here. I have this 3/4 inch frayed ribbon and this gold shimmer ribbon. It's I think it's a 3/8 of an inch, 1/4 inch. I'm going to cut this at 4 inches or 10 centimeters. With my paper snips. And there you can see that it frayed a bit, but that's okay. I'll just snip that off. Let me just trim this little bit up. So this frayed ribbon, to seal the edges, I'm going to use this electric match, I guess it is, and just rub it just really quickly on the edge. And that kind of melts the edge and prevents further fraying. So now it's ready to adhere. And I'm going to take 4 inches of this shimmer ribbon, or 10 centimeters. And if I dry fit this will go right across there. I'm going to put my die cut on top, put my gold ribbon on there, and then use my punch there. Now, on my original, I sponged some Blackberry Bliss. I don't think that this necessarily, there's a lot more white space, so I'm not going to sponge that. I think in this case, we'll just leave it as it is. So I'm bringing in my tear and tape and lay that across, and then just tear it at the end there. And if I burnish it, that will help the adhesive stick to that faux linen or that tissue, and then carefully lift up the cover. You don't want to pull the tape up because it will take the linen, the tissue with it. Remove that cover and then center the ribbon. Let's see, get this centered. Looks great. And then this item, I'm going to again use some tear and tape because I want it to stick really nicely to the ribbon. I'll tear that off and then burnish that, and I'll take the cover off of that, and then this will stick very nicely. And I'm going to off-center it a little bit, so it's going to be more to the right, and then I'm trying to make it cover that ribbon evenly. And now we'll bring in the shimmer ribbon and more tear and tape, because this tear and tape really works wonderful. I'm going to bring it right across the center of that die cut. Let me burnish it with the top of my take your pick tool and then pull off that cover. Here we go. And lay the ribbon directly onto it. Now it looks like I cut it a little bit long, so I'm going to just bring my snips in and snip that edge off. Perfect. And for this, I did put some dimensionals on the top and the bottom, and I used the edge of the dimensionals to cut a rectangle. So I didn't want a very big piece, and these edges are perfect when you can kind of cut them to the size that you want. And remove these covers, and then I'm going to center it in this space where these curved elements are. That looks just right. And then for the last piece, we'll adhere our inside. Now I left this blank because I felt like I didn't know if I wanted to send it for a birthday, a thinking of you, or get well. So I left it blank so I can personalize the message when I go to mail it. Oh, okay. Center this. Here we go. All right, so there is the same card in two different colors. So it's the faux linen technique. This one used Mossy Meadow and Blackberry Bliss. This one used Old Olive and Highland Heather. I like them both. I don't know that I would be able to choose one over the other. I hope you enjoyed them. Thank you for joining me for this bundle bonus. If you have any questions, please hit me up on my blog at stampinghair.blogspot.com. Please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel so I can bring you even more fun stamping projects. And until next time, remember, stamping is fun. Bye.